Good morning, everyone. It's 9 o'clock, and I welcome all to the March 10th, 2026 meeting of the Captiva Community Panel. It's hard to believe it's already March, but it is. First thing is the introduction of the panel to see if we have a quorum. I see Margarita Maville.
Me?
John Rosen is here. Bruce McDonald is here. Jay Brown is here. Bob Rando is here. I know that Ken Suarez will be running a little late. Sandy Stillwell, I don't see. John Wade, I don't see. Mike Bennett, I know he's out of town. And Linda Laird, I don't see. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We do have a quorum in case we have to make a decision. But I just wanted everybody to know that, and I suspect people will be coming on later. And so the first thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from February 10th. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move it.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Just in terms of discussion, Ken Goodaham, the copies of the minutes I have say January 13th on top. It should say February 10th. And then on page 3 of the minutes, in the discussion of Moby Mats, you talk about Leica and Whiteman Lane. Leica is the name of the dog that was on Sputnik that the Russians sent up. It's spelled like that. And White is Wightman. And then on page 4, it says J.R. Brown. We don't have a J.R. Brown here. Take out the R. Okay, but other than that, any other changes to the minutes? Okay, all those in favor, Ken, did you get them? Ken, are you here?
Yes, I was just dealing with something else. I heard those and I'll make the changes.
Thank you, sir. Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Thing on the agenda is Sergeant Rich Zeltman, who is here.
Good morning, David.
Good morning. And
Yeah,
let me just say, Sandy Stillwell is here. And Ken, you just have to make sure she's on in any way you can. Thank you.
Linda is here too.
And Linda Laird is here also.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a good group. Okay, Sergeant, I'm sorry for interrupting you.
Oh, no worries. Just a couple of things I'd like to go over. First, the good news is that we haven't had any serious crimes during this reporting period to discuss, which is good news. I know Chris and Christine do an outstanding job out here, so we try to keep this island safe and secure. But just a couple of things of note, as we know, it's season right now is in full swing. Starting next week is our local spring breakers are going to be out of school. So we're going to have an uptick in even more visitors than what we already have. We've noticed some really heavy foot traffic, especially in the village of late. So, and, between that and big, heavy truck deliveries, that have been coming onto the island for whether it's construction or for food deliveries. We've been seeing a lot of that, and not to mention the power companies holding traffic, fixing the power lines lately during this heavy traffic and tourist season, and coupled with the construction, so my point is that I'm going to ask your audience and your viewers to don't please don't let frustration get the better of you. With all this congestion, then we also have, and which I've noticed, was bicycle clubs, whether it's from Sanibel, Fort Myers Beach. There's these bicycles, and if you've stayed in this area the last couple of weeks or for a period of time, you'll see like 20 bicycles on the roadway, blocking traffic. And it's the law that you have to make sure that you maintain a 3 feet distance to their right. And if it means to wait until the traffic is clear coming towards you to pass them, then you'll have to wait. We don't want any, and I understand people are frustrated, but you have to make sure that you obey the law and that you be careful and, so, and, just to make sure that we keep this island safe, and we don't want your frustration to get the better of you. I am hearing that the Mucky Duck will be opening soon. I'm not sure when that'll be, but when that does come around, we're gonna have a couple deputies over there too to make sure that traffic is flowing well down on Andy Rossi. And it's funny because sometimes I find myself repeating myself during these panel meetings, similar things that we're seeing. One of which I'll give you an example is we had a car go down Andy Rossi, move the construction cones at the Mucky Duck, pull into the parking lot and park. And a guy goes out and actually walks right into the Mucky Duck, even though they're closed and they're under construction. So, I asked him, I was like, what are you thinking? And he's like, oh, I just wanted to see if they're open.
Huh.
I don't understand it. I mean, and that's just one example of many down there. So, we're happy to see folks come down to visit the island, and it's great, and it helps businesses, but just got to be careful because we are bursting in the seams down here right now. I've mentioned this before, but our dunes, our brand new dunes, and maybe Brighton could, discuss that a little bit more, but it's not a free for all. Don't just play around on those dunes and walk on those dunes. And, we've seen that also. So that, that's a really important protective barrier from what I understand for this island. And we don't want to mess that up either. So, and it's the law, you can't mess with the vegetation on dune system on these islands, so we don't want people to do that. And I just want your viewers to know that. So other than that, David, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but these are just a few things that we're seeing on the island of late.
Yeah, your predecessor used to tell me that when people come down on vacation, they leave their brains at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, that is true.
Are there any questions for the sergeant from panel members? Ken, anything from the audience? He's working on something else.
Just
Okay.
one more thing, David, is it's next week because it's our local spring break. You might see a couple extra deputies out here. A lot of the school resource officers are not in school for next week, so they redeploy them to different areas of the county, and we might be getting a couple here on the island to help us out here.
Okay. We will keep that in mind. When we don't see you, we'll get nervous, but we'll keep that in mind.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Sergeant.
Thank you.
Jeff Powell, Fire Department.
Yeah, good morning, David. Good morning, everyone. Mine will be relatively short, but just to reiterate one of the things that Sergeant Zeltman said, obviously, yeah, it is spring break. There's a lot of people on the road, so just be careful as you're out and about and driving, or if you guys are out on your bikes. We have had some fairly serious bike accidents over the last few months of bicycles being hit by vehicles. So if you're out on your bike or you're out walking your dogs, just be careful. There's a lot of extra vehicle traffic, and with spring break, that brings some people who aren't familiar with the area and some of the things that we normally would know and see out here. So just be careful while you're out there and be patient as we navigate these next few weeks. So um, other update, obviously, on the referendum, I think everybody, at least on this call, I know is already aware. Maybe there's somebody online, I haven't seen the list, but the referendum vote did pass. So thank you to everyone who went out and voted. It was just over 77% voted in favor of. So we were very grateful and appreciative and thankful and all those wonderful adjectives you could think of. So thank you guys. Thank you for getting the word out for us. I don't have a lengthy update to provide on that process right now. I think everybody's pretty much aware of what the updates David's given so far on where the specific Rauschenberg property kind of sits. I'm sure there's more, maybe not. I'm not sure on today's update, but until that property is fully sold, closed. That's still, our main focus on this project. So kind of let that run its course before we explore alternative options. But as far as we are still aware, that property has not closed yet to its potential buyer. So maybe David knows more than I do, but that was the last update that I know of on that specific parcel. So as we have more to share, obviously, we'll bring it back to you guys. I'm always at these meetings, and we'll continue to keep you updated. But just in case anybody didn't know, yes, it did pass overwhelmingly, and we were very thankful for that.
Jeff, there was some helicopter activity and ambulance activity last week. Could you, without talking about who it was, could you tell us what kind of issues?
Medical of nature. So we actually had two. I think one we did fly, and then one ended up not meeting requirement. Some things changed, but one of them was a cardiac issue. Another one was a stroke related issue. So medical type calls. Yeah.
Are there any questions for Jeff? Thank you, Jeff. Brighton Hurd, General Manager, CEPD.
Thank you, David. Good morning. You may have seen the ropes and bollards that are going up in the village area. Bob Johnson's going to continue to install those. And yesterday in our board meeting, I got buy-off from the board to also install them along the Tweenwater stretch, which Tony Lappy had requested that we do if possible. So it looks like we're going to be able to follow through on that. You'll also see some signs going up for everyone to be notified to stay off of the dunes. Please continue to spread the word to those that don't know. It's like Sergeant Seltman said, we really appreciate everyone to stay off of it. The grass is trying to get established, and so the fewer footprints we see on the dunes, the happier we'll be. We are continuing as a district to tabulate all of the costs of the recent renourishment project, and we're tabulating the total amounts that will be contributed by grants to the project so that we can derive the total amount, which will eventually be assessed to the residents. As soon as we have updates on that, we're going to provide them to the community. I did want to also mention that I've mentioned previously that the paths that were left for some homeowners across the dune through the sea oats were not left in the correct locations, and Earth Balance just left out some of the paths altogether and planted over where paths should have been left. So if you have a situation such as that, please call our office and coordinate with me, and I can give you instructions on how to address the issue with as best we can with the intent of the district to maintain some consistency in those paths. We're also going to be mapping them off probably next Friday with an engineering team to give the county a full comprehensive map of where all paths across the dunes exist. So we want to try to have it all done by then. We can always update it later if we need to, but the county is going to use that GIS information to enforce the paths in the future to make sure that no additional paths are being created. We're continuing to work with Coastal Vista to design vegetation for the public entrances. We should be getting some final designs before our next board meeting, and they intend to give a presentation to us on those designs. And we'll continue to mention that we have this ongoing Australian pine removal program still in progress. We have plenty of funding left. We've removed hundreds of trees from the island, and I would like to continue to use all of that funding if possible. So please spread the word to those of your neighbors who you may see with an abundance of Australian pines on their property. It's totally free of charge, and we've had great reviews from nearly everyone who has had Joshua Tree out to perform work on their property. Those are all the updates that I have this month.
Hey, Brighton, Jay Brown speaking. On the Australian pines, will you remove them anywhere on somebody's property, or do they have to be near the beach, or?
Anywhere on the island of any size
Okay.
will remove for free. And they
Right.
grind the stump, haul off the debris, and it is done. It's with such an effective touch that I've had trouble finding where the tree was previously when I go back to take photos afterwards.
Brighton,
Yes,
Brighton,
ma'am.
this is
Hi,
Linda.
Linda.
Hi. Has your vendor, has your engineering firm come up with, made any comments about why the erosion is worse this time than it was last time?
Not specifically. We've had a lot of strong storms with winds from the northwest that have caused quite a detriment to the recent renourishment. But I think, as I understand it, this is my first renourishment project to manage, but they do typically lose the most in the first year after completion.
They're supposed to lose
So
25% the first year, but I think we've lost more than that, significantly more. I also wondered the impact. There were some jetty changes up at South Seas that the county controls. And I think it's the same length. I'm not sure exactly, but there were some changes up there. And what we're seeing at Blind Pass is now looking like, so what is the impact of that? We also see at Blind Pass that more of the drift is the way it used to be once upon a time. So obviously there's hydrological changes that have happened, I believe, that are causing some changes. And I don't think we know why. Okay. I don't think Acton understands it. I think we need to understand why, so we're not in this continual, so we don't have to do this again and again. And that's number one. And number two, is the CEPD doing anything to try to come up with a plan to reduce the erosion for the next time? For example, there are things you could put out like reef balls and things like that, which Aptum typically didn't like for some reason. I forget why, although they improve fishing. So what is the CEPD going to come up with a plan to reduce, to try to make it more resilient next time and try to reduce the erosion other than just putting sand on the beach?
I don't have a direct answer for you. I can't say that we are actively working to find additional solutions for the erosion, but that is something that is always an underlying issue. Anything that we can do to increase the longevity of these renourishment projects would be beneficial to everyone. So
Do you
I'm
think you
not.
could do that? Do you think you can get? No, you can't.
It will take modeling is what we'll need, which is very expensive, but I've been speaking to the county about how we may be able to do that more efficiently. So there are some possibilities. It's a long-term play. It's nothing happens
Yes,
overnight, as you know.
it's a very long-term play, but if we don't start now, it won't happen in the 5 years we need to do another renourishment. So, and it's the effect, I think, all the way up the coast, up to South Seas. There's also other designs that that you dump all the sand up at the top, and then part of the design as it drifts forward. That's been done in Europe. So it would be nice if the CEPD with their engineering company could research this for the next time.
Sure, absolutely. I will pose those questions to them.
Right,
Thank
and there's a question from the audience. Are the ropes just
So-
in front of Twin Waters and not the private property owners to the north and the south?
Yes, that's correct. Twin Waters receives a heavy amount of foot traffic, and so the board felt that it was appropriate to install ropes and bollards along that stretch.
Are the additional ropes and bollards in front of private properties, have they been installed by the private property owners?
In the village area, yes.
No, Twin Waters.
Not
Not Twin
it will
Waters,
just be
right.
the Twin Waters, just in front of Twin Waters.
No, so what has happened in
The
the
three entrances.
Twin Waters stretch? There are places where the berm by the road has been removed and there are ropes and bollards that have been installed. Did
Those
this,
were done by private residences.
is that legal?
Yes.
Okay.
I've got a question. Brighton,
Hi, John.
good morning. Thank you for all
Morning.
the effort you guys have put forth with all the initiatives you have going. Appreciate that very much. Could you give us a little bit more color on the total cost estimate, when you may have the model run for the allocation to the various constituents in the community, of when they can expect an estimate, if you have that put together as yet?
Sure. There is a cutoff date that is in, I believe, late July. We're going to try to continue to get as much money from grants to apply to the project as possible to reduce the overall burden on residents. So the more money we're able to get throughout that process, the lower the number will be. I'd hesitate to throw out a number at this time, but we will have preliminary numbers over the next month or two for sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Brighton? Brighton, I have one question. There are
Sure.
some Adirondack chairs and some other paraphernalia sitting on top of the dunes. Is that something that can happen or should not happen? And if it should not happen, is that something that CEPD is going to get involved in, or are they just going to leave them there? So, for example, there are some places where there are just chairs that are permanently sitting on the dunes. It's almost like a billboard, here's where you can put your chairs, and I'm just curious if that's permissible.
It is permissible if you own the property. During sea turtle season, it's a kind of a different issue. We prefer folks not to do that, but ultimately we don't have any enforcement ability to stop anyone from placing chairs on their property. I'll check with the DEP if there are any further restrictions that I'm not aware of, but to my knowledge, landowners do have the right to put a couple of chairs, hopefully adjacent to their walking path on top of the dune.
Okay.
I don't know that they'll have much of a view after the sea oats begin to grow, but that's up to them.
Thank you. Any other questions for Brighton? Thank you, Brighton.
Actually, I'm
Uh,
asked, yes,
Mark,
one brief question, and it's regarding the traveling sand on the corner, between Twin Waters and the corner where Jensen's on the Gulf is. I wonder if the CEPD could get little fences. They are woven, they are a material. You can easily step over them, and they are very effective. They are called sand or silt fences.
Yes,
They are,
so I brought this up at the board meeting yesterday, and did get buy-off from the board to purchase some sand fencing, which is a little bit more aesthetically pleasing and slightly more permanent than silt fencing, which is just that fabric that is zip tied to stakes. So sand fencing is the wooden slats with aluminum, I believe, that is twist ties it all together. It comes in rolls of 50 feet, and I have reached out to DEP to see what types of permits we need to acquire prior to installing some sand fencing around the corner you're talking about at Jensen's, and also at Andy Rossi, where we're seeing quite a bit of sand drifting into the road there.
yeah, usually the wooden fences, they are higher. They are usually up to 4 feet. They are very pretty to look at, but they make the material fences in a much lesser height, maybe 2 feet. And because the sand travels always very low, I feel, and they come in nice colors, like a yellowish, or anyway, it's
Sure.
yeah, it's good that you're onto it.
Yes, ma'am. And hopefully we'll get more of the rain like we've received over the last couple of days. So I've noticed that the sea oats have jumped up just with the little bit of rain we've gotten. So if we can get good dense vegetation over the next 6 months there, that will make a tremendous difference in the amount of sand that's flying off of the dunes.
Brighton, my understanding is that Michael Bennett, our infrastructure committee, spoke to DOT at Lee County about fencing around the Jensen's curve to prevent the sand from coming on the roadway. And according to DOT, they said due to the large rocks that were deposited on the roadway along the roadway, erecting and anchoring fence barrier is not feasible. I don't know if that's accurate, if it is or is not feasible, but what I would suggest is you speak to DOT as you investigate this, because they may have an opinion about it that we didn't know about. And then
Sure.
the other issue that was going to come up later is that the DOT seems to be particularly vigilant about now removing vegetation that encroaches on the shoulder, but they seem to be unable to deal with the sand that is constantly coming on the shoulder, particularly south of the Jensen's curve and then the curve a little further south. And so I guess the question is, and I was going to raise it later, but something maybe you can consider, is there some ongoing maintenance program that the community, the county, the panel, whatever, can work together to maintain those shoulders, to keep them without having sand covering them up? Because the sand obviously is very dangerous for people bicycling. It's very easy to slip on the sand. So maybe you could think about a maintenance program. If the DOT can't do it, DOT seems not to be able to maintain the sand on a regular basis off the shoulders.
Absolutely. To go back to your first point of the sand fencing and the rocks, I believe that the sand fences would likely be installed on the new dunes, probably in 2 or 3 parallel rows along each side. I don't know that it would be so close to the roadside that it would go deep enough to be impacted by rocks, but I'm still waiting for a response from our local DEP representative about the permitting process. So maybe she'll have some insight about the rocks as well.
Okay, but it was DOT, it was the Department of Transportation for the county.
Okay. Yes, I understand. I know they're not affiliated, but the permits sometimes go hand in hand, and she may be aware of some issues related to that. But I will reach out to DOT as well. I know that I wanted to talk about the other issue of maintaining the sand on the road. I know that one of our community members, Greg Fergus, has thankfully reached out to the county himself and requested them to do some sand removal in that stretch along Tween Waters where they've been removing vegetation as well. And we're having, as I mentioned, that same issue at the end of Andy Rossi. So I'll circle back with him and see what those conversations amounted to, and if they would be willing to work with us and or allow CEPD to take on some of that responsibility. But I agree that that issue does need to be addressed.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Right,
And
and there's one comment from the audience about the chairs in the dunes, saying he doesn't think the county will allow those chairs and suggesting you contact Paula Kizala at the county to
Okay.
follow up on that.
Sure. Yes, she's the one that I know will enforce it during turtle season, like I mentioned, but I'm not sure outside of turtle season how much restriction applies. But I will reach out to her and find out.
Right, and thank you for answering everybody's questions. I know there are a
No
lot.
problem. A bit of a firing squad.
I hope not.
No, not too bad.
Okay. Next,
Thank you.
thank you. Matt DePaulis from SCCF.
Hey everyone. Just a couple of quick updates for you today. Not a lot has unfortunately changed on a couple of fronts. The lake is still pretty low. Got back up over 12 feet with the recent rains we've had, but they're still not releasing any water. So the water flows through S79 are well below optimal, significantly below the legal limit that we should be getting. It's looking like 419 right now, and we're shooting for 750. So haven't seen any movement there. Legislative session has been moving forward. Some of the worst bills that we were watching at the beginning of session have actually been significantly changed or removed completely. So that was good, but it doesn't look like they have agreed on a budget, which is the requirement of legislative session. So that session is supposed to end this week. It's looking like it'll go long again this year. Whether or not that means they just go home and come back or they actually gavel out and start a new session remains to be seen. But no movement on the budget. There's about $1 billion worth of daylight between the House and the Senate, which is still 2 or 3 billion below what the governor wants to see. So a lot of disagreement there. But other than that, happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions for Matt from either the panel or from the community at large? Ken?
Matt, I have a question. I have two questions. One
Yeah.
is, if it's illegal, is there anything to be done about it?
There's not, because the way that it's structured is you cannot have two exceedances without a violation occurring, but an exceedance cannot follow another exceedance within a year. So the minute we had that first exceedance, the first time it dripped below 457 cubic feet per second coming through S79, that started a clock. So another exceedance can't occur within a year. So next season, if this happens again, that'll be considered a violation. The problem with that is the mechanism for fixing a violation includes finishing the C43 reservoir, which is currently under construction is finished, but it's under operations and testing. So even if we were able to get the Army Corps into a courtroom, the judge would likely say, well, they're following the plan, which doesn't do us any good here in the interim.
Okay, and what's the relationship to red tide of low versus high? We usually get red tide after hurricanes, right? And I don't know if that's when in that year or the next year. I just don't remember any of this.
Yeah, so we usually get red tide. Red tide initiates at a set time every year. We usually get the large red tides after an event that deposited a ton of terrestrial nutrients into a waiting red tide. So a hurricane serves that purpose a lot of the time. A hurricane moves a lot of water from land into the Gulf. That can exacerbate a red tide. Similarly, with a large extended lake release event, that's moving a lot of nutrients into the Gulf. So we can have red tides after any real large influx of anthropogenic nutrients like that. So when we've seen some of those red tides in the future, or in the past, some of those have been tied to hurricane events. Some of them have been tied to large movements of water out of the lake when there was an active blue-green algae bloom already, so that there was that active nutrient base going on. Right now, we're not getting any water from the lake. We're barely getting any water from the watershed. And there's no real red tide that's showing up in monitoring in the Gulf right now. So right now, there's very little risk that we would see something like that.
So it's one silver lining is we're not having we won't be getting red tide because we don't have enough water and nutrients, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little out of season for a red tide, so I wouldn't expect one anyway. I don't think the impacts we're going to be seeing to the estuary are really driven by toxic algae blooms. There has been some blue-green algae showing up in the river, and in the canals. So that's a risk. What we're really seeing now is stress on the ecosystem itself because of that salinity gradient being so askew. Because we're not getting water from the lake or the watershed, that salinity gradient is moving up the estuary. And there's a lot of sessile organisms that aren't able to move and react to that changing chemical conditions of the water. So they're being incredibly stressed by these higher salinity, this higher salinity level in the water around them. The organisms that can move are free to move away from that salinity and move up the estuary. However, we've got the S79 lock and dam structure at Alva. So those organisms are being compressed against that lock and dam structure. And that really increases predation. So I wouldn't expect us to really feel the impacts of this right now. Rather, I think we're going to see it a year or 2 years from now when a lot of the juvenile invertebrates that we're losing right now should be entering the adult populations of those organisms. So we're going to be seeing a reduced amount of blue crabs, a reduced amount of redfish, a reduced amount of a lot of these species that we come to think of as our key ecosystem species in the estuary. So that's what's really going to be the issue is 2 years from now when people are saying, wait a minute, where's all these organisms? It's going to be a result of what's going on right now. We're just not able to see that in real time in the same way as like a red tide or one of these massive events.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions for Matt? Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Next thing on the agenda is just a note on the Blind Pass sandbar, so to speak. Right before the meeting, I received a call that advising me that they believe Blind Pass is now completely closed, and due to the sand. After the last meeting, there seemed to be some confusion over what the county policy was with respect to Blind Pass. So I reached out to the county, and I think I understand what the confusion is. Currently the policy of the Board of County Commissioners, the policy of Lee County, is to keep the pass open. There is no intention at this time from a policy perspective to allow that pass to close. So the county at this point is in the process, they're watching the shifting sands, but they're in the process of requisition and bidding for whatever's needed to either reopen or keep open Blind Pass. They expect that by the end of 26, they'll have a construction award, and the end of 2026, they'll have a construction award, and they will proceed to do whatever's necessary to keep the pass open. So that is the policy of the county. No one is suggesting at this time that the pass should be kept closed, or if it closes, it should be kept closed. At the same time, they undergo regular studies. They're called inlet management plan studies, and those studies take place over a 3-year or a longer period of time. And that when they do those studies, they look at every option, and one of the options is to leave it, not continue to open it. But that's just an option in a study. And at this point, no one is moving. They're doing the study because they're required to do the study, but no one is changing the policy at this point to allow the Blind Pass to close. So there we are. So as far as we know right now, policy of the county is to keep it open, and they will do what they have to do to keep. So I just want to clear that up. There was a difference between a policy and a study. Study looks at every option, but the policy now has not changed. It's to keep it open based on prior studies or decisions of the county. So if there are any questions about that, please ask them. Otherwise, we can move on. But we should just be vigilant, and we'll keep track of the timing of the county as they move forward to do whatever's necessary to keep it open.
Hey, David, Hey, just a question, because I know this has come up in the past about a more permanent solution and extending the jutty, I guess it is, and possibly putting one on the other side so there's a longer, a narrower channel that as the tide went in and out, it would sort of flush the sand naturally. And I believe in the past, Annabelle hasn't been interested in doing anything on their side. But is there anything that we can do on our side in extending that jetty?
That was you're the second person that's asked me that question in the last 2 days. And I don't know the answer to that. I think it's worth reaching out to the county, and maybe Bruce, you could be part of that. And we could reach out to the county and see what's being reviewed and included in their plan to keep it open. In other
Okay.
words, just going to dredge, or are they going to look at some other options to try to keep them from having to dredge as often as they had? I know this closing is related to some degree, obviously, to the beach renourishment and the shifting of the sands. So I think it's worth doing that offline. Bruce, I could talk to you about that. Maybe
Okay.
you could work with the infrastructure committee, and you could reach out to the key players in the county and just get a handle on that.
Okay.
Bruce, is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Hey,
great.
thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. The next thing
One second, Bruce, there is an inlet management plan or whatever, the blind pass management,
Yeah.
plan, which you can get a hold of, I think, and you could use that as, foundational. Okay?
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, that's the study that they're doing. They review every number of years. It's called the Inlet Management Plan. Linda's correct about that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. The next thing on the agenda, I just want to bring to the attention of the panel. At a couple of CEPD meetings ago, a motion was made to indefinitely postpone any work on a Bayside Resiliency Project. As everybody remembers, the Bayside Resiliency Project was initiated by the Captiva Community Panel. After doing some significant work, we thought at that time, we moved it over to CEPD. We transferred over to CEPD because they had the wherewithal, the taxing ability to raise funds to implement some of the remediation or resiliency programs or options that we had reviewed at the panel level. And then they retained Aptum to do some more resiliency studies and develop options. In any case, there was a motion to postpone that indefinitely, the work on the resiliency of the Bayside. And then there was a vote taken, I believe, at the last CEPD meeting to at least continue to not to deal with it at this time, to put it on the back burner, so to speak. There was some opposition from some of the members saying that we should continue to review it on a monthly basis and keep moving forward, but that did not pass. So knowing that this occurred, I had drafted a letter and sent it to CEPD and said that if they are not interested in doing the resiliency project, there's a possibility the panel may want to take it back and work on it from the panel perspective, develop a committee which could include CEPD members, and the panel could then retain that or reclaim it and continue to work forward on the Bayside Resiliency Project and bring it back to CEPD if and when we needed funding, and they could work with us on that, and we would do that together. I sent that letter to them. I said if they were interested in doing that, and then to let me know, and I would bring it back to the panel and have the panel discuss it and decide if the panel wanted to reclaim this project and to continue to move it forward. The CEPD was not interested in the offer that I had made them. They decided to keep it, but not to do anything with it, to postpone it at least temporarily or indefinitely at this time. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. The Bayside Resiliency Project, as we understood it, is not going to go forward at this time, at least not immediately. And I just don't know how the panel feels about that. The panel, it was said at the meeting, if the panel wants to do their own thing, the panel can do its own thing. But that's where we are at this point. I just want people to understand that we're facing a situation where CEPD, and I understand that they have a lot on their plate. They're facing some litigation. They have to complete beach renourishment. They have to do an apportionment. There's a lot for them to do. On the other hand, the Bayside Resiliency Project is a long-term project, which we always felt as a panel that it was important to keep going. So there we are. I don't know how the panel feels about this. I don't know if you want to have a discussion about this now, but I thought it was important that you were aware of it.
David J. Brown, is there any way that the panel can take the project back without permission from CEPD?
I think the panel could, on its own, do develop a Bayside resiliency project and to work on it. I think in fairness, it would obviously keep CEPD informed, and I think vice versa. I don't know whether the reason we transferred it to CPD to begin with is because they had the ability to get funding through taxing the community. We don't have that ability. We could try to raise funds from nonprofit, foundations or from the county itself to continue that project if we felt it was important to do so. But I think we certainly have the ability to do that. I don't think CEPD has sole jurisdiction over this.
I guess I've been involved with it more than anybody. And I think that the next step would be if we were to take it back. Well, if we were to have a panel activity on it, would to have a small group, which would not require a lot of money, is to review what has happened to date. It's been published, and decide what there is of value to the community that could be done, and estimate perhaps what the size of it could be. There may be a set of clear directives we can give the community on what can be done, rather than things like, taking over land or anything, and work with the community and then with the county on it. But I think there may be work we could do that would give us the intelligence of what we think the right next steps would be. That would be relatively low budget. I mean, low budget is like $25,000, $50,000. That's what I think, without a lot of extra work. That's my gut opinion.
Yeah, I think what happened at CEPD is there was discussion of eminent domain, which has never been in the cards. There was some discussion, taking land through eminent domain on the Bayside, which was never in the cards. I think there was confusion as to what the resiliency project was. I think there was some discussion at CEPD that people, at least one board member said, we don't know what it is, meaning the resiliency project. So I think Linda's idea of sort of figuring out where we are, what's out there, what's been studied, what options are available, and whether there's anything real that can be implemented may make some sense. I think it might be helpful if we create a committee to have at least one representative from CEPD on the committee. Maybe that could be Brighton, and so that we could have some coordination and take a look at it if that's what people think we want to do. I think when we started this project, I think we thought the flooding, when it comes from sea level rise, is going to come from the Bayside, because we do beach renourishment on the Gulf side. And to ignore that at this point may be to our detriment. And so I don't know how the panel feels about, we don't have to do it today, but we can create a small committee to get our arms around where we are, what we did as a panel before that, what Apton and CEP did after that, and then see if there's something that makes sense going forward.
Well, another way to look at it is just the to have the project continue to be under the supervision of CEPD, but carried out by people on the panel.
See,
And you report to
Yeah.
CEPD. What,
JCPD did not have interest in that. That was basically what I was suggesting, is that the panel would do the work in conjunction with CEPD and bring it back to CEPD when we had something that was concrete. And I don't mean that as that's a bad pun, but I don't mean concrete.
right.
Come back to the for implementation, and there was no interest. The CEPD did not want to proceed at this point on the Bayside resiliency, and did not want to basically sanction the panel to be doing that work.
And I don't believe the CEPD was that interested in it when I was there. We funded the studies and had it done, but I don't believe they were really that interested in it.
Yeah, they may, I don't know. I don't know what's in the minds of the CEPD members. All I know is they put it on a back burner.
Yeah,
And
this is a long-term project.
Yeah.
We need to gather a lot of information. I don't really care at this point what the CEP thinks about it, but we as a community, half the island is on the Bayside. And if that's where we believe the risk is, I see no reason why the panel wouldn't start to put something together to continue to study this, because the results, hopefully in the future, can be a potential plan. But this is something we have to continue to address. It's not going away. So I agree with Linda that the panel should form some sort of committee to continue to study this. And funding, let's put that aside for a second, but the importance to me is too great to ignore it.
And things are sort of tied up in a bow over, we have a package that's tied up in a bow for us from Aptum. So we spent 250,000, some number, 400, some number of amount of money coming up with the plan for the backside, and then nothing happened. So I think what we have to do is take that apart, look at it, and see if there are actionable things we can do with the community.
Yeah, there are some people that believe that there are actionable what I would call low-hanging fruit that can be tested and implemented on the Bayside without
Exactly
anybody's property rights. And so I would suggest that Linda obviously included, and anybody else who wants to work, we can create a committee who would get the Apton report, look at what we've done prior to that. We had some modeling that was done and suggestions, and basically put it together, review it, and bring back to the panel what the next steps might be. And so Linda, why don't we talk about this offline? You could be obviously on the committee, and we can see who else would like to be on that committee and undergo that process, if that's agreeable to the panel.
I'm willing to do it. It's a lot of work for anybody to get involved. I would suggest doing it if you're a property owner or this impacts you significantly.
Okay, so how does the panel feel about this? The idea of putting together, I would call it sort of a working committee initially, just to see where we are in this process and what the next steps might be for the panel, given what's already been done by Aptum and by Cheryl, people remember Cheryl, and see what makes sense for the future of the Bayside.
I would be supportive of saying that the panel ought to take it back to review the work that has been done and then come up with a set of next steps.
Yeah, I'm for it
Then
too.
revisit at that time whether we want to continue on with it or continue on it under the umbrella of CEPD. I'd be for that.
Yeah,
I would like to support it too. And actually, in the beginning of Captiva, I think it's the first 5 properties starting from Blind Pass Bridge, and then the first 5 properties, they actually have something that was, I don't know when it was built, but it's big limestones, and you don't even see them because the mangroves have grown over them. But when the water is clear, we would snorkel along there and see all kinds of sea life, soft coral, and little colorful tropical fish. So that is one part on Captiva that I know about where something like this was installed. Maybe we can find out when it was done. But it was done to protect the bay side to not be washed away.
Okay. All right. I think we know where we're going. I will speak to Linda outside the meeting. Linda will work with and contact all the panel members and see who would want to be part of this committee. People in the audience, if you'd like to be part of the committee, you don't have to be a panel member to be on the committee. And we can go forward on this. I think what's important is that we're not doing this in opposition to or in any way antagonistic to CEPD. CEPD at this point has put it on the back burner for its reasons. If the panel thinks it's important not to put it on the back burner, we can go forward. But in the end of the day, we're two community organizations that have to work together, and we will probably, if we come up with something that's real, we will probably go back to CEPD because they have funding ability that we don't have. So I think that basically we're going to carry the ball at this point, or take the ball, see where we are, and then keep CEPD informed along the way, but to continue the process. Fair enough?
Sounds right to me, David.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Next thing on the agenda is the South Seas redevelopment legal update. I'm not going to go through all the nuts and bolts of the legal cases, but there have been dates set for certain things, and I just wanted people to be aware of them. The first thing is on the 9/12, the decision of the circuit court, limiting South Seas to 9/12. That was appealed, 9/12 units. That was appealed by the county and by South Seas to the appellate courts. That date, an oral argument on that case has been set for April 30th. So they picked a panel of 3 judges, and that panel of 3 judges will hear that appeal, oral argument on that appeal on April 30th. They actually set it for Lee County Law Day. They set cases that they think are interesting on Law Day. They've invited the public and students to participate and watch these oral arguments that they've set for Law Day. And so our case is going to be heard on April 30th. Just to remind people, the county and South Seas is challenging the validity of the contract between CCA and the county and South Seas that was signed back in 2002, 2003. That was mediated, approved by the judge, reviewed by a whole bunch of lawyers. And the county's position is the contract's not clear as to what it requires. And even if it was clear, the county did not have the authority to enter into that agreement back in 2002. The Board of County Commissioners exceeded its authority by entering into that agreement. We think that's an argument that's going to fail. A contract is a contract. They all signed it. It was reviewed. It was mediated. It was approved by the court. And the contract, just to remind people, the contract actually says the total number of dwelling units on South Seas Resort is limited to 912. No building permits may be issued by the county for dwelling units within South Seas Resort that will cause that number to be exceeded at any time. Says what it says. And so the county's position is that it's ambiguous. It is hardly ambiguous. So that's where we are. That's set for April 30th.
David, do you have a time and location to share?
It'll be at the courthouse in Fort Myers, and it'll be at 9 o'clock.
But there hasn't been a courtroom scheduled?
I'll tell you what it is scheduled for 9 o'clock at the Lee County Justice Center, courtroom 4A at 2075 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in Fort Myers.
I know you don't like to speculate, but would you speculate on why it's being done on this date? Does that have any implications for us? Or it's just they think it's interesting?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think they probably schedule cases that they think are interesting and won't be boring and the issues are understandable to the public because the public is invited to watch it. I don't know if you can read the tea leaves on that. I don't know. I think the attorneys for the CCA are feel that the panel of judges are intelligent and they feel that it's a good panel to hear this kind of case. So I think that's a good thing.
Thank you.
So that's the first thing that's happening. The DOA appeal, the appeal of the land use changes, that's not been set for oral argument, is still pending. We don't know anything about that
Wait a
at
minute,
this.
this one that's first pending is for April 30th. Is that the Shenko decision?
Yes. Yeah. 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 The people remember that when the Shenko decision came out, the Protect Captiva legal update said that would include the 912 includes hotel units, which Judge Shenko determined in his granting our motion for summary judgment or CCA's motion for summary judgment, not ours. And so there's really no dispute that the 912 always included hotel units back in 1973 and 19, and that with the ADD in 2002, et cetera, et cetera. However, the South Seas has sued the CCA claiming that it was false advertising to say that the 912 includes hotel units, or that if we win that case, that hotel units will be part of the 912 limitation, which we think is a silly argument. But in any case, they've sued CCA for saying that. That case is scheduled for a status conference, the suing of the CCA on April 6th. And the South Seas has sought discovery from people regarding that quote false advertising claim. And the lawyers for CCA have filed a protective order against any discovery, and that hearing on that protective order is scheduled for March 23rd. And that'll be before Judge Shenko also. So that should be very interesting. The cert petition that was filed by the 20 associations and RLR and CCA challenging the rezoning decision by the county that allowed all this to happen too. That's scheduled for a status conference on April 6th. So we don't know what's happening with that at this point. And then the something that I had later on the agenda, the public records litigation. I'll just review that now. The panel, as everybody remembers, has been sued by South Seas for not producing documents in response to their records request. As far as we know, we have provided every document that has to do with our community planning efforts and all documents that mention the terms that the South Seas wanted us to review, which was timbers and South Seas and Wheelock Street Capital, et cetera, et cetera. And we produced over 1,000 pages of documents to the South Seas, to timbers, even though it's not clear to our attorneys that we're covered by the Public Records Act because we don't get any funding from the county and haven't gotten any funding from the county since 2002. But in any case, they have sent a notice to our attorneys that they would like to depose every member of the panel as to whether or not they provided documents from their emails regarding the terms and that they requested in their public our community planning efforts. Our attorney is think that's ridiculous and is filing a protective order against any discovery on this case. So they haven't noticed any depositions, but they're looking to depose every panel member, Ken Goodaham, Jay Brown for 2 hours, me for 2 hours, everybody else for 1 hour. It makes no sense to me other than to harass panel members for what they believe is not supporting their rezoning request on South Seas. But in any case, a protective order will be filed. There'll be a hearing on it, and we don't have to do anything until that gets resolved. That's before Judge Cohen. So that's where we are on the legal cases. Are there any questions? Don't all speak at once. Okay. Sandy, you have any questions? I see you looking there with all your legal papers in front of you. No, you're on mute, so we can't hear you.
Sorry, I was just making notes. Thank you. Because let us know if there are deposition dates that come about so we know to be in town, or if they can do it, can they do it also virtually?
I would be very surprised if depositions are taken.
Okay.
I think the question of whether the Public Records Act applies to us and what we're obligated to supply to a requester is a question of law. You can't help with that. I can't help with that in terms of the deposition. The court will decide that. They will hear what we provided and they will see what we provided and they'll make a decision. I don't see why depositions would be needed. And I think that's what our lawyer would say.
David, on the cert petition status conference, is that to determine what is it, probable cause, whether the judge takes on the case?
The petition for certiorari, which the 20 associations and RLR and CCA filed, asks the court to issue an order to show cause, meaning asking the South Seas or the county to respond to why they think we were wrong and the rezoning should stay in place. And so the first thing a judge does is issue an order to show cause. What it basically is, we're ordering you, South Seas, we're ordering you, the county, to respond to this petition that was filed by the CCA, the 20 associations, and the RLR. And so the judge set a status conference. He has the petition. He knows the next step is to issue an order to show cause. He may issue that before the status conference. He may issue it at the status conference. He may orally say to the South Seas and the county to respond. We don't know what he's going to say, but the next step would be for him to decide when and how to issue an order to show cause. He decides the timing on that. Once he issues the order to show cause, they have 30 days to respond. And so it's probably looking at his calendar and when he wants to do that, when he wants to get that process started.
And that's in Shanko's courtroom you said on the 6th?
On April 6th. And I think it's a Zoom status conference.
Oh, Zoom. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All the legal issues, the factual issues, things that we've been talking about for the last year or longer are going to start to come to a head. And the courts are going to have to start making decisions. And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out at this point. But once you have oral argument, a court can wait 6 months before they issue an opinion also. So we just don't know how this is going, what the timing of this is going to be. Okay, nothing else? Ken, nothing from the community? We have
No,
40,
nothing.
we have 43 people on this call, just letting you know. Um, the next thing is the Rauschenberg property. We have heard nothing. We have heard nothing since since we heard a contract was signed. So we are still waiting to see what's going to transpire here. Next thing is the Stormwater Committee update. J.R. Brown.
Okay, actually, it's J.W. Brown.
Oh, that was my lousy sense of humor, Jay. That's what it
All
said.
right, okay. Uh, yeah, I had a conversation last week with Phil Gilligy, who is the uh, county person who is managing the stormwater project, which is being performed by JHT consultants. Phil tells me that they are having a great deal of difficulty, coming up with reasonable solutions for our stormwater effort. And so therefore the original date to complete at least the first draft of the study being the end of February would be delayed now at least until the end of March before we're going to see anything. But basically he's saying, the characteristics of Captiva, not having much land mass, not having areas for retention ponds, is making it difficult to come up with, alternative models for dealing with the stormwater. I asked him specifically about, well, it would seem that we could at least do drains down village side streets, have a common collection site, and clean the water in some fashion, and then put the clean water into the sound. He said that there were significant issues with that I probably didn't understand, but that was one of the options that they were continuing to look at. He also started talking about other possibilities, which he implied would be the type of project where you'd have to make a policy decision that over time people would have to change their properties in certain ways when they wanted to improve their properties. And so it wouldn't be like, well, we've got a stormwater plan now, we need to implement it now. It would be something that would be implemented over a period of several years as, properties one by one might come on, and implement something that would, make stormwater easier to handle. So at any rate, that's what I have from him to date. We're looking at the end of April before we'll get any communication about, options to look at. So that's where we are in stormwater. I'm happy to field any questions.
So they got a model finally, and now once they have the model, they can't figure out what the best solution is. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not sure that, I'm speaking the same language with this guy. He seems to refer to model as different ways to deal with
Oh,
of stormwater. Yeah, they understand how stormwater flows on the island now. They understand that, but they can't come up with alternative ways. They're having a lot of difficulty coming up with alternative ways to
solve
handle
it.
those stormwater flows.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that's always been the challenge,
Yeah.
and that's why they get paid the big bucks to come up with this, right?
Yeah, one would think so. Uh, Again, it would be nice if we could have regular meetings, and sit in on discussions, with the consultants and make our own suggestions for things they should look at. But uh, we know the project wasn't designed to allow that kind of input, so uh, we're just in a position of getting very brief updates on progress on a once a month or once every 2 month basis, and then seeing a first draft report and being able to comment at that time.
Thank you, Jay.
David, there are a couple of Southeast questions that popped up late. Would you like to deal with them now or wait a while?
We can deal with them now.
Okay. First one was, will the April 13th hearing be on Zoom as well as in the courtroom? April 30th, I mean.
April 30th. I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm gonna look right now. It doesn't say that, but I will find out before April 30th and let people know.
Okay. And the second question was, does anyone know if South Seas has been granted permission from DEP to build their new beach residences on the Gulf side of the coastal construction control line?
When you say beach residence, you're talking about a series of the condominiums that they had in the plan that was approved?
That's all I got. And the question was the new beach residences.
Yeah, I'm not aware that they've, as far as, I don't know about the DEP. What I know is that there's been no request for any permits from the county to build anything on South Seas by the resort at this point, because any requests for building permits that they make have to come to the CCA pursuant to an order of Judge Schenko.
Okay, so that also answers the question, because DEP doesn't review anything the county hasn't looked at first.
Not
So
only
they
that,
would-
but DEP is pretty good about informing the surrounding
Yeah,
residences when they do apply. So, I haven't received anything myself, and so I doubt if they are going to pursue anything until after some of these decisions have been made. In fact, I've heard that pretty from a pretty good source that they are holding tight until all these decisions are made.
When you say decisions, you're talking about the court decisions.
Correct.
great. Thank you. That's all the questions.
Okay, Jay, you're back on the stand here in terms of wastewater.
On wastewater, just in terms of quick review for context, we're at the stage now where a committee has been formed of people from the panel, which consists of David and me and Mike Bennett, and then Dana Sousa, who is the city manager for Sanibel, and Steve Chappell, the assistant city manager for Staple, where we've formed a working group to try to deal and come up with solutions to the fact that if we're going to partnership with Donax, that there are all sorts of very significant costs associated with implementing a Donax strategy that we had never anticipated. Those primarily being the need to run a parallel pipeline to handle Captiva wastewater, whereas we felt we'd probably be able to use existing Sanibel pipelines. And then secondly, the second major item that's come up is their perceived need that they will need to build another deep injection well to handle our wastewater. The cost of those additional items make the total cost of the sewer project prohibitive, in my view, substantially higher than what the community always felt when we had community support to keep pursuing this project. So we're going to finally have a meeting again with the Captiva Sanibel working group to see if we can find ways to reduce costs of the Donax option or find public grant money that would reduce the cost. Also, there's some recent developments in things that have been learned about FUA in the last few months that suggest that a lot of work may have to be done at FGA to make FGA viable just to continue servicing South Seas over the long term. And if there's going to have to be a major investment made in FGA, then it might turn out to be more cost effective for us to partner with FGA rather than Donax to do our processing. So we're going to be working on, that additional possibility also during this working group meeting, which will be held this afternoon. So I think that's where we are, David, on wastewater.
Thank you, Jay. Are there any questions for Jay on the panel? From the community?
No.
Okay. Next is the Infrastructure Committee. Mike Bennett could not make the meeting today. He passed along a lot of information to me to report. The first is on the Lee County has selected a project consultant for the mitigation on the 800 feet that leads from the south to the Jensen's Curve. So they're in the process, that process is continuing, and they got a consultant, and they're going to, I guess, do studies and plans to harden and make that span from Jensen's Curve south resilient. And we'll get more information as that project consultant does its work. My understanding also is that Michael Bennett has been working with Greg Fergus and Jen McPhee, who have been helping. I think Brighton mentioned Greg the other day. Earlier in the meeting, and my understanding is they're concerned about the viability of Captiva Drive being able to safely allow bicyclists and pedestrians to use the shoulder. My understanding from Mike is that the county will be more vigilant in removing the vegetation along the shoulder so that the access to the shoulder will be clear. The issue of sand is been a little more complicated because we discussed it earlier when Brighton was with us. The county seems to feel it's more the property owner's responsibility, but I'm not sure that can be the case. So that's why we talked about figuring out some sort of maintenance plan to keep the sand off, whether it be fencing or some kind of regular maintenance plan to keep the sand off the shoulder. The county's view is that the shoulder was never made for bicycles. That's not its purpose. It was for pedestrians. But we know the reality is that bicyclists use the shoulder and they have to use it to ride safely. So we're going to have to continue to work on that. Mike's been working hard with DOT from the county, and will continue to do so. And hopefully we can come up with a plan to keep the sand cleared off the shoulder on a regular basis. So that's where we are on the Infrastructure Committee. Is there any questions for Mike that I can bring to him? Okay, any questions from the community, Ken?
No.
Okay. Next thing on the agenda is the Development Committee. Marguerite Tia. You're on mute, Marguerite.
Yes.
Marguerite.
Yeah. We had a fundraiser on February 13th that went very, very well. Ken, I don't think we have all the numbers yet. The CAA was very kind to give us the space for just the costs that they had, but I don't know if their invoice came in.
It has not, no.
And then we don't have all the, we had 4 sponsor checks, 3 have come in, 1 is outstanding.
Right.
But yeah, Ken, if you want to give us the numbers.
Yeah, assuming the final sponsor, which will come in, and I assume that will happen, we raised $6,400 from that event.
Nice.
Great.
Yeah. So going further, I thought the time was nice, and maybe we can do, or I would like to do another event next year on the Friday before Valentine's, only because we have so many events on the islands and often Saturdays are taken. I'm not going to give anything away. What I do need is I need to create a fundraising panel or group. I need support. Linda has been helpful. So if someone feels this is what I would like to support, please let me know and contact me. Yeah, and actually that's pretty much all I have to say for now.
Let me just say, Marguerite, that the event that was held was actually was lovely. I mean, it really was. You had a very nice turnout. For people who couldn't make it, you should just know that the food was out of this world, and that Marguerite herself and her family did the catering. They did the cooking and brought the food. And I've never seen anything like that actually in a fundraising event where actually the chair of the committee did all the work and all the. So next year we need to have a committee to work with Marguerite, because I think we will prohibit her from being in a position where she'll do all the cooking. I mean, I think that's beyond the call of duty. But it was.
However, it's my experience that Margarita is the best cook on the island, so maybe we
Withdraw that motion.
Figure something else out. I would like to say as well, I thought the event was lovely, lovely, lovely. And the amount of effort Marguerite put in was huge, but it was a lovely, lovely event. And it was a gift to the island, I think.
What I also loved is we had participants that don't usually are not that familiar with the Captiva Community Panel. Some people from Sanibel. I was able to get some Captivians out there. Next year, what I also need to do is I need to have Ken there. We have to have a better ability for, if people want to make a donation, that it's easy for them to do it right then and there, because I know some people were willing and asking about it. And then maybe the Eventbrite is not the best, how do you say, platform. There are other platforms, but maybe that is something that I discuss with the panel that I will create, and instead of having the whole community planning having to listen to it and
So rather than a panel, you're going to have a committee.
yes, a committee. That's right, a committee.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank you,
Mark.
Marguerite. It was just wonderful event. Thank you for the effort. Well acknowledged. Thank you once again for everything you put together for that evening. It was great.
Good, thank you. I will continue doing that. That is my goal, where people really, beer in the bushes where it's almost a fight to get the tickets. That's where we want to go. I want to support the Captiva Community Panel, and it's a fun event. Let's do this.
Okay, thank you. Next thing on the agenda is panel members' comments and questions. Are there any comments from the panel members or questions that haven't been covered during the agenda? John?
I just want to inform the panel and the community that the Sanibel City Council approved the Island Water Association rate increase for the next 3 years. The first increase will be on your bill of July 1st. Second one will be January 1st of 27 and 28 January 1st of 28. So that was approved, and I just want to inform the community to be expecting the increase on their July bill.
And John, those increases were 18% a year, if I
That is correct.
Okay, any other comments or questions from the panel? How about from the community and the audience, Ken?
There was one other comment, just thanking Marguerite for the great event. The food was outstanding.
Thank you.
Okay, so I am happy to announce that this meeting is going to request a motion to adjourn at 2 minutes before 10:30. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn?
There a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Thank you, everybody. We covered a lot of ground and we did it expeditiously, and that's great. See you all next month.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.